Stop talking about comic books or I'll kill you. I don't care if the Hulk could defeat the Man of Steel.
Hey there, comic fam. Bullseye Bob here, and welcome to Everything Comics. And this is another episode of Having Comics with My Coffee, which is usually the show where I get together with you in a local coffee shop, have a great cup of coffee, and talk about the comics that I picked up this week. Well, as you can see, I'm not in the Refuge coffee house this weekend. A couple of things happened, and I am filming in the Bob Cave. So we're just going to go ahead and review our comics here, and hope you guys don't mind that. But some things happened, and I had to do this from home. So anyway, hope you guys are having a great weekend, and we got a lot of comics to review. This was a great week in comics, and so I'm excited to get into it. And so first thing I want to say is, of course, I'm live and in living color, but I'm not at the Refuge Coffee House, but that's where we normally film, at the Refuge Coffee House at 9217 Southeast Foster Road. It's a great coffee house. The owner and proprietors are really good friends of mine. They allow us to have the show there, and they're awesome people. If you're ever in Portland, let me know. We'll get together, we'll have some coffee, and we'll talk comics or talk about whatever you want. There was a viewer who came here to Portland this week, but he didn't ask to come and join me at the Refuge. So I hope that he took me up on some of the suggestions that I gave him, and went to the Fallout and maybe Excalibur Comics and a couple other places. But it's always good to have you guys come to Portland and check out what we have here. So before we get into our comics, I do have a couple of announcements. You're going to see a timestamp up on the screen here just now. And if you want to skip the announcements, you can go ahead and get straight to the reviews. You can do so. But here we go with the announcements. So coming up on September 11th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we are going to have another battle draft. That's right. And this time we are doing something completely different. I've given the guys a scenario, and we're going to do the Battle of Hell's Kitchen. That's right. A portal is opened up from DC Comics, and the League of Assassins have dropped right down into Hell's Kitchen, and they're looking to take over New York City. So what we're going to have the guys do is draft their best street-level Marvel team to combat this threat that's come from the DC Comics universe. It's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, we have the usual suspects. We have Robbie from Pop Culture Philosophers, Dylan from Dylan's Comics, Bueller from Comics with Bueller, and we have both Sean and Will, Hero and the Kid, and of course yours truly. And it's going to be a fun time, so don't miss that. September 11th, Friday night, 9/11. 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Be there or be square, folks. It's going to be awesome. As you know, I'm on another show. That's right, Monday mornings, 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on the brand new Coffee and Comic Show. That's on the Comics with Bueller channel. That's where Bueller and I get together and we talk about some of the hottest topics in comics right now. If you haven't been to his channel, you should definitely check it out. Every Wednesday, he drops a preview video, and that previews the following week's comics. Everything that you'd ever want. All the variants, all the different titles from all the different companies that are coming out. Usually about 150 books. It's a great video, but on that video, he poses a question, and we ask you to leave comments, and we use your comments to drive our conversation. It is an amazingly fun time. You don't want to miss this week's topic. It's, what do you like best? Do you like cover art? Do you like interior art? Or you like the story? What is it that makes you want to buy comics? And it's a great topic. A lot of comments have been left already, and you don't want to miss that conversation. But we have that show every Monday, 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's always a great topic, always a great time, and you don't want to miss it. Definitely check it out, folks. Okay, folks, so before we get into our reviews, we always start with the cover of the week. This week's cover of the week is brought to you by TKO Studios. Do me a favor, check this out. Folks, thanks for tuning in this morning. I hope you're enjoying the comics that you're having with your coffee. I know that I am. Hey, I wanted to talk to you about something really quick. I like new comics. I know you like new comics. And over at TKO Studios right now, they're putting out a lot of great stuff. They're a partner of the show, and they've sent me some stuff to check out, and I've really been enjoying what I've seen so far. This book, Sarah, this is a very popular book. I know a lot of people know about it. It's in its third printing already. A couple of weeks ago, I had Damien, Sleepy Reader 666, on the show. He said it was the best war comic he's ever read, and I'd have to agree. I'm about halfway through it. I'll probably drop a full review on the channel about it because it's really good. But this is just one of the things that they have there. They also have stuff by Jeff Lemire. They have this book called, this series called Sentient. Now, the thing about TKO that's kind of unique is that when they come out with a story or they come out with a comic book, you don't have to wait month to month for it. They bring it all out at once and just drop it. So inside of this dust cover is all 6 issues of the series, and they put it out like this inside of one of these nice dust covers, or they'll put it out in the trade paperback. So you have a choice of whatever your flavor you like. But the stuff that they're putting out is really quality. It's really good. I will say that the actual size of the comic books are a little bit larger than your normal comic book format. That's okay. These look really nice on the bookshelf. But here's the thing, guys. If you go over to their website, there'll be a link down below in the description, and you see something that you like over there, enter the code everything20 at checkout, and you'll get 20% off your first purchase. How can you beat that? New comics, 20% off, and like I said, they're putting out a lot of great stuff right now. They've sent me other stuff that I haven't read yet, like The Banks, and then this other series called The 7 Deadly Sins. I can't wait to get into this stuff. Anyway, guys, go check out TKO. They're a sponsor of the show, and you can get 20% off some comics. How can you beat that? And so now, without further ado, this week's cover of the week is Spider-Man Noir number 3, and of course I'm talking about the B cover. I just love this black and white cover. It evokes so much emotion. I think it's an awesome cover. I love the way Spider-Man Noir is hanging off the side of the building. I love the black and white, the mistiness in the background. There's just so many elements that I just really was drawn to this cover with. And so there it is, folks. There's the cover of the week. Hope you enjoy it. Do me a favor, leave me a comment down in the comment section. Let me know what your cover of the week was. Okay, so let's get on to our books, folks. And the first book this week is That Texas Blood by Image Comics. This one is written by Chris Condon, and of course the artwork is done by Jacob Phillips. This continues the story that we've been getting about this town that seems to be has a life all of its own down in Texas. And the first book had a little bit of supernatural stuff. The second book had a little bit less. This book had no supernatural stuff in it. But I got to tell you, I love where it's going. I think it's very well written. I'm on board with it, but it's completely different than I thought it was going to be. And so, but that's okay. I think that the writing is masterful. It's definitely going to be a slow burn. But I'm on board for the trip that he's going to be taking us down. I love the artwork. I think that Jacob Phillips, definitely learned from his dad, because illustrating this is pretty awesome. So this book revolves around the character that we were introduced in the last issue, and we get kind of deeper into what's going on inside of the town, the history that he had with it, and why he's being drawn back. And we keep getting more and more smatterings of the fact that it's very tough to leave this town, and if you escape, you're kind of lucky. And he was lucky, but he's come back because of the death of his brother, and very quickly we start to see that he's being sucked in to the town. Old relationships coming back to the fray. He has a kind of an understanding of who killed his brother, and instead of him going to them, they kidnap him and bring him to them. And they're basically going to hold him to the flame on a debt that his brother owed. And that's kind of where it revolves inside of this book. And so anyway, all the supernatural stuff is kind of in the background now. I don't know where it's at, but I love the characters. I love the dialogue. I love where they're going with this, and I'm intrigued. I'm definitely intrigued to see what happens next, and what the mystery is. Why did his brother die? Who actually killed his brother? And who these people are that are trying to collect this debt. I think it's going to be an awesome ride. Definitely check it out. I love some of the stuff that Image Comics is coming out with, and this is definitely a quality book. So next we have Suicide Squad number 8 by DC Comics. This one written by Tom Taylor and the artwork by Daniel Sampere. And you guys, I've been loving this title. I think Tom Taylor is killing it. Anything he puts his hands to has been great. When this title first started, I wasn't sure about it. I haven't really liked Suicide Squad in the last 5-10 years or so. And so when issue number 1 came out, it was kind of bombastic, kind of cool, but it was in your face. Introduced a bunch of new characters, which normally inside of DC and Marvel, I don't like when they introduce just a whole bunch of characters, because there's nothing really to drive you to them or care about them. But the writing on the first issue was so good. It was adventurous. It was fun. And second issue, it was the same way. By the third issue, I started to really realize that, this was going to continue, and I was on board. And he slowly started to develop some of these newer characters, which I really enjoyed. And here we are in issue 8, and I've just been loving this run. And and the thing that's really sad about it is we found out that DC Comics is canceling this title. I really hope that they're canceling it just to relaunch it. Because I've really been enjoying what Tom Taylor's been doing on it. It's the first time I've been compelled to pick up Suicide Squad for a long time, and I'm just going to say it. I mean, it is one of the best titles that DC is putting out right now. So it is definitely sad to see it go. This particular issue revolves around one of the newer characters, a character called the Airy, and we find out her origin and how she got to be in the Suicide Squad, and it's a really solid read. I really enjoyed it, and again, if you haven't been reading this book, I would definitely recommend it. Even if it's getting canceled, you can't go wrong by picking up this title at all. It's a fun read. I love the way Tom Taylor has developed the characters, and I'm on board. The next issue is called The Death of Deadshot. I don't know where he's going with that, but I can't wait for it. There you go, DC Comics Suicide Squad number 8. It's a good read, folks. And so our next book is The Plunge, number 6. This one also by DC Comics, DC Black Label. This one written by Joe Hill and the art by Stuart Eminem. And this is a really DC heavy week, I gotta say. But this is the final issue of The Plunge. Out of all the Hill House books, I would say this ranks up there as one of the best. I definitely think The Dollhouse was my favorite so far. But this was a really good book from beginning all the way to the end. Awesome read. I mean, even the first issue, nothing happens in the first issue. But Joe Hill, the way he writes the dialogue, it made all the characters really compelling. It made me want to understand where they were going next. And the ride just kept getting more and more crazy from there. And I've loved it. I think they really landed the plane inside of this book, although I kind of figured something like this was going to happen, so it wasn't entirely unpredictable. But we basically get the space sperm, they got what they wanted. They impregnated their egg, and now the egg has been let loose, the creature that's come out of it. And so bottom line is we get an ending of them trying to take this creature down before it devours Earth. And the way they do it is kind of cool. They use one of the methods that was used earlier in the books against it, and so it ends up really fine. I got to say that I've loved a lot of these Hill House books. These self-contained stories in 6 issues. It's kind of what indies are doing, and but I really enjoyed them. I really hope. I know DC has canceled a lot of stuff. I really hope they go forward with more of this Hill House imprint because they've done some really quality work inside of them. And so there you go, Plunge number 6. I definitely recommend picking it up. And it's one of those things where they're probably going to collect all these in trades, and this is one I would highly, highly recommend. It's definitely a fun time. So next we got Daredevil Annual number 1. Of course, this is by Marvel Comics, written by Chip Zdarsky and art by Chris Mooneyham. So I got to tell you, when it comes to annuals, I'm usually not that excited. I mean, if you've been a comic collector, for a number of years, you know that a lot of annuals don't really pay off. They're kind of filler copies. And they used to be kind of cool. They used to use annuals to, bring different characters together to fight, which I really loved. But in this particular case, most of the time they don't pan out. So I usually don't get too excited about an annual. This one though is something special, and I got to tell you, when I saw the cover, I was excited about the cover. I had no idea what was going to be on the inside, and as soon as I started reading the story, I got really excited. You see, about a year and a half ago, I was at Emerald City Comic Con, and I got to meet Chip Zdarsky, and I got to sit with him and talk with him for about an hour, which was really cool. And we started talking about the current run of Daredevil. We knew that he was going to be writing it. It was kind of Charles Soule was ending, and there was this whole thing with Daredevil's brother, Matt Murdock's brother, Mike Murdock. It was kind of weird that they brought him, out all through all these years. Of course, that was an alter ego that Matt created so that he could walk around in the normal world and nobody would recognize him as Matt. It was kind of dumb, I thought, way back in the day, but through some magic, that piece of consciousness that was Mike Murdock became real, and now he's in the real world, and that's basically what we get inside of this book. And when I was talking with Chip, he was basically saying that keep focused on this whole Mike Murdock thing. I got something special planned, and if they let me do it, it's going to be amazing. And so I've been kind of waiting to see, and sure enough, here inside of this copy, we have Mike Murdock. That the whole story is about him. It has nothing to do with Daredevil. Kind of reminds me back in the day when they had the Vengeance of Bane one-shot, when the whole story was just about Bane. And we knew that, actually at the time, nobody knew what it was about. But later on, when Bane shows up, it was pretty apparent what was happening. It was freaking awesome. And so here you go. We get this story where Mike is walking around and he's kind of feeling unsettled because he has no memory of any upbringing or consciousness of who he was except for who he is now. And that bothers him. So he feels like he's not a whole person. And he sees the character called the Hood, and the Hood has this stone that is locked away, and that stone can basically grant you whatever your wish is. It's like, I think they're talking about it was kind of like the reality stone. You can make whatever reality you want. And so Mike comes up with a way to get this stone, and he basically gives himself a whole life from beginning up until now. And we go through time and see this consciousness that's building, these memories that are starting to be built inside of him, so that it brings you to who he is today. And man, I gotta tell you, by the end of the story, I started to get chills because I started to realize just how diabolical this was. And I think this is going to be the next big antagonist for Matt, and I can't wait. Zdarsky has been doing an absolutely masterful run. This particular annual, you don't want to sleep on. I would definitely pick it up. I have a feeling that later on it's going to have major repercussions in the life of Daredevil, and people are going to be scrambling for this particular annual when all is said and done. So definitely get it, folks. Anyway, it was a solid read. The art by Chris Mooneyhand was top notch, and I really enjoyed this book from beginning to end. So definitely pick it up. All right, next up on the list is Batgirl number 48 by DC Comics. This one written by Cecil Castellani, and the artwork by Robbie Rodriguez. And what the hell, DC? Have you lost your damn mind? This is, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're following the regular Batgirl book, I guess it's okay. But this was touted as a Joker War tie-in. Like I said last month, it makes no sense to the greater narrative of the Joker War. So I would say that it's loosely tied. And where we were left in the end of the last book was basically Barbara Gordon on the floor right next to Joker, both of them seemingly paralyzed, and which of course again didn't make sense. And so inside of this book, it makes no mention of that. Definitely, her implant has been zapped, so she's trying to get that back and get it back in her, and so she can be back up and running. But there's no continuity inside of this to the greater narrative of the Joker War or to what actually happened to her. By the end of this book, we get this scene where you see some of the police that are bending down over somebody who's on the ground, and you see Barbara Gordon gasp, Batgirl gasp, and she looks down and she sees herself. And she's basically on the street, and the tagline at the end is, "Who killed Batgirl?" And it's like, oh, okay. So you've got this whole thing that you're doing throughout the book, not tying to anything, and then it's like, oh, let's show the death of Batgirl in here. It made no sense to me. The artwork is okay. There was some parts of it that I enjoyed, but nothing happens in this book of value, and I was kind of confused by where they were going with it, what they were trying to do, and it was just like, yeah, you can go ahead and pass this one up, just like I am. I'm not going to be. I won't be picking up Batgirl going forward, especially when it has Joker wore collateral damage on the cover because it has nothing to do with that, and I'm tired of it. There you go. So let's talk about a book that DC did do right this week. And of course, I'm talking about The Flash number 760. This one written by Joshua Williamson, and the art by Christian Duce. I can never I don't know how he pronounces his name, but I probably butcher it every time. But this was an awesome read. Of course, you can't go wrong with Williamson. This is, again, I will say it, one of the best titles that DC has out. And, I think they're shooting themselves in the foot by letting Williamson go do something else because he's been killing it on The Flash. And I'm really going to be, I'm going to be sad to see him go because this has been an awesome run. Of course, last issue, we had Barry trying to gain his consciousness back because Eobard Thawne has basically taken over his body and gotten the dream of his dreams, which is to be the Flash himself. And so Barry has been in kind of like a conscious form of the Speed Force, and so now he's trying to push to get back. And Eobard Thawne can feel this, and so he starts trying to run around and figure out a way to basically stop Barry from gaining his consciousness back, to basically bury him wherever he's at. And through a bunch of things, he definitely does break out, and we can start to see Thawne's Legion of Zoom starting to kind of question him, kind of start to break up. But no, Thawne basically by the end of the book is like, I knew this was all going to happen, and I've gone all throughout time, and I've collected all of your enemies. And by the end of this book, we see this menagerie of a huge amount of Flash's greatest villains all come together to come up against the Flash family, and we are going to have a big showdown in the next book. I can't wait. The last page of this book was kind of one of my favorite panels of the week. It was pretty awesome, but you can't go wrong with Williamson's run on The Flash. This was another solid read. I had a really fun time reading it. The artwork by William Duce is just phenomenal. There's a lot of pages that are just could be their splash pages under their own, and it's just a lot of fun to look at, a lot of fun to read, and of course we're coming to the culmination of Williamson's run on The Flash, which has been nothing but epic. It's been amazing. So there you go, guys. Definitely pick this up, and when it comes out in trade, collect it highly. It's going to be awesome. And next we have Lock and Key, Impale Battalions Go. This one by IDW, and of course this is written by Joe Hill and art by Gabriel Rodriguez. I love the Lock and Key series, and this was a great return to it. Of course, this one doesn't follow the main storyline that we all know and love. This actually follows the Locke family in the Key House from generations past. This one kind of revolves around the time of World War I. And we have the son of the time. His name is John, and he is trying to enlist because the war is happening, and he knows that the keys in Key House are very powerful, and he believes that they can be used to sway the tide of the war, and so he's trying his darndest to become enlisted or to get to the war as quick as possible, but more importantly, to get the keys. And so we have a couple of scenes, where we get into the characters, and the character development is really well done in a short period of time. But basically, it's a manipulation of trying to get his sister to give him access to this box that have the keys in it, and it's a lot of fun. It has all of the same smatterings that we love from the Lock and Key story, and we get to see some of the keys in action. And by the end of the book, we have him basically gaining these things, and he's off and running, and we're going to see what happens when these keys are used in battle. It's going to be so much fun. I love the Lock and Key series, and even this first book just coming out, it was everything I wanted it to be, and so I'm on board. What do you guys think? Are you reading this title? Because I've been expecting this one for a while, and I love it. So definitely check it out if you haven't. If it's not on your pull list, make sure that it is, because it's going to be a fun ride. Next, we have Nail Biter Returns number 4, This one by Image Comics, and of course this one also written by Joshua Williamson, and the art by Mike Henderson. And again, I'm loving this series. When I first started, I had never read the original Nailbiter series, and so I took a chance and hopped into this one, and was very easily able to hop into the story without really knowing what happened before. He gives you enough so that you can go ahead and get into the story. And I loved the first issue. I loved it so much that I went out and I bought all of the collected volumes of the original Nailbiter series. Dug it. It was amazing. I love those books. I love Williamson's writing. The artwork inside of this series, I think it's Henderson's best. I don't know, maybe it's because, creator-owned stuff, you're going to put your best stuff to it. But, I mean, miles ahead of what he did in Daredevil. And but anyway, I've really been enjoying it. Here we are on issue number 4. And, this one, it was kind of, I'm in a place of, I love the story so far, but the vehicle on getting us there, every book you have another one of the Buckaroo butchers show up, and there's all kinds of murder happening. And in this book, there was so much going on that I almost kind of lost the original plot. I know that our main characters were pinned down in a house by the Y2K killer, and he's blasting everything. And so that's what happens inside of this book is they're trying to get out of the house before he blasts everybody to smithereens. And the Terrible Two end up showing up, and so we get another one of the serial killers going down, and another serial killer popping up, and there's still this master waiting out on the wings. And but even with all that, even as I felt like I was kind of losing the main plot a little bit, by the end of it, I kind of was back on board. And there's just so much going on inside of the book, but it's so much fun. It's so much fun to read, so much fun to view. The characters, the way they come off the page. I love the blood splatter that he does in the panels. And so I really can't wait to see where we go next. It is definitely a fun read. I mean, I'm really, really enjoying the way Williamson is crafting his characters. And again, just that one little thing about this book that I kind of felt like I lost the plot line a little bit, but by the end of it, it writes. And but it's a fun read, folks. If you haven't been reading this one, it's definitely easy to hop onto, and I would very highly recommend it. Okay, next on the list, folks, and I know we've all been waiting for this. It's Three Jokers by DC Black Label imprint. This one, of course, written by Jeff Johns, and the artwork by Jason Fabok. I think that's how you say his name. And oh man, we've been waiting for this to come out for a long time, and didn't know where they were going to go with it, and it does not disappoint. First of all, before we get into the book, I'll just say that the artwork by Jason Fabok, it's amazing. I mean, it's nothing to look at as far as panel work, because he uses the old-fashioned just 9-panel method, of presenting in a comic book. And but even in that, just with that 9-panel, you can say it's boring all you want, but every panel was like a splash page unto its own. It was beautiful. It was well composed. The artwork was amazing. The colors are amazing. You see, the colors are done by Brad Anderson. But I mean, and then when you finally do get a somewhat of a splash page, it's used to great effect as part of a vehicle inside of the story. Robbie from Pop Culture Philosophers pointed that out the other night on our monthly review, and I was like, man, he's right. It does. That's the only page in the book where you have this sort of splash page, and it's used to great effect. And so it's definitely, from what I can see, shaping up to be a masterpiece. It was just so much fun to read. It was so much fun to look at. I know I've said that 3 times in this video, but the Three Jokers is definitely a good read. And we still don't know how there are 3 Jokers, but instead of waiting to the end to tell us, we get the 3 Jokers in this book. All 3 of them are there. And it was kind of weird and cool to see them all there at the same time. And the way the story evolves, of course, you have the complete deviousness of one of the Jokers driving one of our characters to do something, and the end result. There's a surprise page at the end that I wasn't expecting, blew me away. And I can't wait to read the rest of the series. It's only going to be 3 issues. I can't believe it's only going to be 3 issues. But I tell you what, it's just amazing so far. If you haven't picked up this book, you're going to want to. This is going to go down as amazing. And as amazing as it is, it's not my pick of the week. And there's a reason for that. But we're going to get into that. But I tell you what, if Three Jokers is a masterpiece unto its own, I love it, and I really can't wait for the next issue. I don't like the fact that there's 5,500 covers of the same face done in different ways, but bar none, it's a great read, folks. So definitely check it out. And so now, last but not least, is my pick of the week. And this week's pick of the week, you know I had to do it, is Kanto 2, The Hollow Men. And the only reason why this is above the Three Jokers was because, again, Kanto is one of those books that just resonates with my heart. It emotionally moves me. And if you can do that with the comic medium, it's the very thing that got me into comics in the first place. I'm going to be on board, and I'm definitely going to pick a comic that can do that. Of course, this one's by IDW. It's written by David Bueller, and the art by Drew Zucker. And, you know, man, I just love the Kanto series. You know, I keep saying it. You know, what is it that I like about it the most? First of all, I love fantasy. I love fantasy settings. But this brings you back not just to a fantasy setting, but to the same settings that, you know, have set people's imaginations on fire for years. Kind of that Wizard of Oz feel. And one of the things that's very hard in fantasy series is to catch the pureness of a character's heart. Especially one that is just starting out on an adventure, and the innocence that they have. It's just so hard to capture that and make it resonate. And that's what they've done inside of this book. They've captured the essence of that innocence, that pureness and wonder, while at the same time bringing you a story that is epic in scope and very, very fun to read, but also at the same time, the tragedy that they bring to it is so pure and so truthful, and it just resonates so deeply. And so one of the things about this particular book, just like last month when they came out with the one-shot, it took me back to that feeling I had when I first read Kanto. And I'll say this, Kanto is one of my favorite reads of all time. I have no problem in saying that, and so I was so glad to be able to have this book in my hand this week. And you know, we pick up where we kind of left off. Kanto has set his people free from the Shrouded Man, and now they're on their way to basically find a home. And what we end up finding out inside of this book is that, you know, they're preparing for when the Shrouded Man returns. Who knows when that'll happen, but you know, Kanto definitely wants his people prepared. And then one of the characters falls out. Their clock is stopped. If you remember in the first books, the Shrouded Man had taken out their hearts and given them clockworks, and so that's how he made them slaves. And so now one of their clocks has gone out, and not only that, but they're figuring out that the Shrouded Man somehow kept them going, because now it looks like all their clocks are winding down. And so the revenge of the Shrouded Man is complete. If they ever gained their freedom without him, they would die. And so not only did they not want him to show up, but now they have to go after him, and that's the adventure that we're going to have going forward. It was so much fun to read. I was on the edge of my seat when one of the characters fell out, because I'm really loving the development of these guys. And you know, you can't beat what is inside of the pages of this book. It's just so well done. And so if you haven't read Kanto before, you know, even if you don't have the ability to pick up the first series, get a synopsis of it and then hop into Kanto 2. I guarantee you'll love it. It's amazing. It's definitely my pick of the week. This is the only thing that could topple the Three Jokers, and it doesn't topple it. It just is a step above because it resonates emotionally, and you know, you're always going to get that with me. And so there you have it, folks. It's an awesome read. Definitely recommend it. Pick it up. So that's it, folks. That's the reviews. I hope you enjoyed those. And of course, we end our show always with the panel of the week. This week's panel of the week comes from the Three Jokers. There is a point inside of the book where Batman and Batgirl and the Red Hood are in an aquarium, and in this aquarium there's fish, behind them, and then you start to look at the fish, and they all have that evil grin on their faces, so you know that they've been affected by the Joker toxin. And all of a sudden, Batman turns around and a shark shows up. I mean, not that big of a deal, but having this shark show up with the Joker toxin affecting it, staring right at him through the glass, I had so much fun. I geeked out over it. I thought that was so cool. There it is. I hope you enjoy it. That's my panel of the week, folks. So there it is, guys. That's Having Comics with My Coffee this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, so sorry I couldn't do it from the Refuge Coffee House. But we'll be back there next week, live and in living color. Same bat time, same bat channel. And I hope you guys are on board because I've been enjoying this ride. I hope you are too. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you like the content I'm putting out, do me a favor, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. And I really, really appreciate it. So there it is, folks. Y'all take care. Remember to support your local comic shop, and Excelsior. Take care.
I'm gonna rearrange your face if you continue to debate whether Logan's claws could pierce Steve Rogers' shield.